Hey everybody, Jane here, and we are doing my reading wrap up for June, July, and August. In 3 months, I have read or tried to read 17 books, which is not a lot for me. I will tell you I was a little bit disappointed because I really wanted to try to record this video on my phone. I have been doing my vlogs on my phone, and I think the quality of them is a lot better. They are richer visually, and the sound quality is better. So if you are coming here and would love to hear what I am having to say but are not loving the sound quality of my video or the aesthetic of my video, this is being recorded on a fairly old laptop because I don't have a lot of choices. But I do have many of these books in reading vlogs that are recorded on my phone and look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So if you are bothered by the aesthetic, please go check out those vlogs instead. They won't cover every book I'm about to talk about, but they'll cover about half. All right, so let's get into it. June, July, and August were crazy months. I have been working 50 to 60 hours a week pretty much continuously since June, and so the reading has not been prioritized. I've had some winners and some losers and a lot of neutral kind of books along the way. Most of the books I'm going to talk about did appear in reading vlogs, so if they did appear in a reading vlog, I'm not going to go into super detail about it. I'll just tell you which reading vlog they appeared in. So book number one, we're going to go from kind of least favorite, but in a clumpy kind of way. Like, I'm going to clump my DNFs together. I'm not going from this is the DNF I liked least to the DNF I liked most. We're not going to do that. It's just DNFs, then 3 stars, then 4 stars, then my single 5-star in 3 months. One 5-star in 3 months, which is not great and probably isn't adding much to my reading. And I will tell you too, that one 5-star is not the book I wanted to 5-star, but it's a 5-star. Anyway, yes, so starting with the DNFs. This first one appeared in my June Buzzwordathon reading vlog, and that is A Rebel Without Claws. This is the first book in the Stay a Spell second series. So Stay a Spell is a paranormal romance series, which I read and enjoyed. The first book in that series, Wolf Gone Wild, was a 5-star for me. Everything else was 3 or 4. Didn't hate them, didn't love them nearly as much as Wolf Gone Wild. The second series follows their children from series 1, and I think that was part of what didn't work for me. In this one, we have one of Evie and Mateo's children. They were the first couple in that Wolf Gone Wild, and the girl's name is Celine. I cannot remember what the boy's name is, but anyway, this didn't work for me, and I think following a child from the first series was a big part of what didn't work for me, especially because I was like, oh, we're gonna get spicy times, and this girl is not acting like an adult, even though she's in her mid-20s. Like, she is a counselor, she has a proper job, but she still kind of acts like a teenager. I am still seeing her as a teenager because, you know, in the books, she was literally in diapers. Yeah, a lot of reasons this just didn't work for me, and I don't know if I'm going to be continuing it on the series. I might continue if it's not an Evie and Mateo child, because there were a lot of children born in the Stay a Spell series that we didn't spend nearly as much time with as Evie and Mateo's kids, and also, you know, who maybe are being treated like grown-ups a little bit better. So I'm not saying I'm never going to read another book in the series, but I did not enjoy this one and was very sad to DNF it. The next DNF we're going to talk about was in my July Buzzwordathon reading vlog, and that is Toni and Addie Go Viral. This is a sapphic romance, but it didn't work for me. The quick version of what this is Toni is a professor in Victorian history. Addie is an actress who is studying a part. She has gone to one of Toni's conferences to kind of learn about stuff for this part that she is trying to be accepted for. They have a kind of steamy meetup, and they exchange, I don't remember if it's phone numbers or emails, but they exchange contact information, and have kind of kept in touch for a little while, but not super intensely. So just like casual contact. We are not, as the reader, really shown the buildup of the relationship. And then years later, Toni has written a book, and Addie, and it is getting film adaptation, and Addie is applying to be the lead actress on the movie written off of Toni's book. I did not like these characters. I did not like their chemistry. I thought they were okay by themselves, particularly Addie. I didn't really like Toni at all. And the relationship for me was very intimacy forward, which is not what I enjoy. I don't mind if a book is spicy, but I want the spice to come after the relationship unless there's a really good reason that I can wrap my mind around that it isn't. And it's not just that people are horny. So this book is very everybody's horny, and so they're messing around and not actually building relationships. And that's just not for me. So the last DNF I had was called You Should Be Grateful. And guys, I got pretty far in this one. I got like 80%, 90%. It is a nonfiction memoir about transracial adoption. And it is written about this woman who is a Black woman who was adopted by a white family and raised basically white, and is kind of talking about her experience with adoption and her thoughts on being an adoptee. And it is so grateful. I'm so grateful that she chose to do that. And I'm so glad that she has given her perspective to the world on her experience. That being said, I was very frustrated with her a lot of the time. And granted, like, your experience is your experience, and the way you process things is how you process things. I felt like she often blamed things that she spends a lot of time being really hard on the system. And like, the system is flawed and broken. Most adoptees agree on that. But she doesn't really ever call her biological mother into account. She's very forgiving of her biological mother. And honestly, that made me mad a lot of the times, because her biological mom, she is kind of, one of the things she says throughout the system is, if poverty was the problem, if my mom had just had more, help and assistance, she could have raised me. Here's why that upsets me. A couple things. Number one, I am a mother living in poverty, working multiple jobs to take care of my children, and I don't have a ton of social safety nets. And certainly her mother maybe had access to more than she was taking advantage of, maybe not. And like, I acknowledge my privilege, I am white, and her mother was Black, and maybe that really played a bigger role than I am giving her credit for. But, in my brain, I'm like, her mom could have worked harder, and she obviously had a village to help her, because the mother did keep custody of, and I say it this way because her children that she kept custody of, she gave to other people to raise anyway. But she gave custody of her children she kept custody of her children except for her two youngest. And here's my thing. That is a choice. That is a choice the mom made, and I'm not saying her circumstances weren't bad, and I'm not saying her circumstances weren't affected by being Black and being poor, because I am sure they are. But I feel like she still made choices, and as a mom living in poverty and also struggling, I get mad when we totally blame everything on poverty instead of people, it is both. There are systemic issues and people issues, and it really irritates me when we go too far sometimes. In my opinion, this book takes it a little far, and again, coming from a place of privilege, this may be absolutely incorrect, but I feel like her mom made bad choices along the way that were just as involved in her ending up being adopted as was her, the system failing her mother. And she never calls her mom into account, and she's very forgiving of her mom. And by the time we got to a certain section of the book, I was just so frustrated with it and tired of it. Her mom did not raise her other siblings. Her mom ended up like handing her siblings off to neighbors and friends. And actually, like, one of her daughters, we learn, had to change her birth certificate so that she could get housing because she was homeless and nobody was taking care of her. And then you have this girl who was adopted by loving, attentive parents. And I get it. Those are not your bio parents. And I get it. They are white and you are black. And that has to be very difficult. But again, as a white person who's not part of the adoption triad, I really struggled with some of her perspectives in this book. I'm so glad that she shared them, and I definitely need to really think and try to be more empathetic and try to be more understanding and recognize that this is her truth. But that still didn't change the fact that I was frustrated by her truth, if that makes sense. So I ended up DNFing pretty close to the end of the book. I couldn't anymore. I was so frustrated with, again, her very real, very perspective on her circumstance and situation. All right, so getting into my 3 stars. This was from my July Buzzwordathon reading vlog, and it is, even though we're adults, it's a manga. It's fine. Quick version, a woman who is married and apparently bisexual falls in love with another woman, and it's volume 1. I didn't get further. I didn't connect with the characters, and frankly, I didn't really care. So, was a miss for me, will not be continuing. Number 2 on that list, this is also from my July Buzzwordathon readathon, is Battlestar Galactica. Aliens attack a human planet. The humans are on the remaining survivors are on multiple battleships led by multiple ships led by Battleship Galactica as they try to preserve the human race and go find a place for humans to live. I watched the TV show several years ago, the more modern one. These are very much based on the books. Here's the thing. This is written weird. It is pretty much like a book tie-in to the TV show as opposed to like a book that created a TV show, and it reads that way. It's also, written in the 70s and a bit of its time. I didn't think it was bad. I didn't think it was good either. The next book we have was from my August Buzzwordathon. It is also a 3-star, and that is Fatal First Edition. This is a cozy mystery. There is a librarian who goes to an archivist. She goes to an archivist conference to learn about preserving books, and there is a rare book that has been kind of left out. She finds under her seat. She returns it to the person who is running the thing, and he ends up deceased. And so she and her crew are trying to figure out what happened to this dude. I think this is book like 14 in the series. I was not connecting to the characters. I don't have a history with the series. The mystery was fine. I did have some issues with like it being confusing because there was a lot of names that were very similar. I also, around the midway point, a secondary character gets put in peril, and for me it felt very eye-rolly. Maybe I wouldn't feel that way if I'd read the entire series up to that point, but yeah, it just didn't work for me. I don't think this is a terrible book. It was just fine. The last 3-star I had was from my August Buzzwordathon blog as well, and that is Appointment with Death. This is a Hercule Poirot. Basically, the meanest, nastiest woman in the world is murdered by a lot of people who have lots of reasons to murder her. It was not one of Christie's better mysteries, in my opinion. I think it took a long time for the person to die. I think we spent way too long at the end of Poirot going, well, if you'd done it, here's how you would have done it. But you didn't. So if you'd have done it, here's how you would have done it. But you didn't. The person who did do it, I didn't feel like there was enough evidence to make me believe that they did it. I did consume this one on audio, and I will tell you I will probably go back for a reread at some point because I am aware that it was, maybe I missed something because I was reading on audiobook. But yeah, this was not, in my opinion, a very good Christie. It was very meh. Blah, eh. All right, so now we are getting into my 4 stars. And the first 4-star we have is Always Remember. Always Remember is a Mhairi Balogh historical romance. I don't remember these characters' names. This was in my July Buzzwordathon reading vlog. You had the girl who has mobility issues. She is not quite confined to a wheelchair, but uses a wheelchair a large amount of the time. There is a guy who is the illegitimate son of, I want to say a duke, some nobility. He's the illegitimate son, and he's been raised with his father's children, although of course he's treated like one of the family, but he's not quite one of the family where inheritance and things goes. He is a widower with a small daughter, and him and the girl get together and have a lovely romance. He does help her with mobility aids, and I think there is a little bit of bordering on ableism, but I think the author handles it well and makes it so that we don't feel that, especially because like he initially is like, hey, maybe you could do this, and she's like, hey, that's a brilliant idea, and goes and like finds for herself somebody who can help her with the mobility devices that she has. So I really overall enjoyed it. It's not my favorite Mhairi Balogh, but it was a decent one. The next book did not appear in any of my reading vlogs, and that is Northranger. It's a graphic novel. I enjoyed it. It is about this guy here. He goes with his stepdad to a ranch to work for the summer. He is gay, and he meets a boy who works the ranch who is also gay. Initially, he is afraid that this guy has been involved in unaliving somebody, and that the family has unalived people, and that so there's a little bit of a mystery going on. It was fine. It was interesting. I've never read. I believe this is based off of Northranger Abbey, which is from Jane Austen, and I've never read that, so I don't know how similar it is, but I think this is kind of like lightly based on that. This author I've read other stuff from and have enjoyed, and their stuff is based on other stuff as well. But yeah, this was fine. It was cute. It's 2 boys falling in love with a little bit of a horror theme. I think this would make a cute October-y read. So if you're wanting a graphic novel that is a male-male romance with a little bit of a horror element, I think this would be a great thing to pick up. The next 4-star I had was an audio that I did. It was a nonfiction called Playing Possum, and it is about how animals perceive death, how much they understand death. Here's the thing. This book was very interesting. It was fascinating. There's a lot of examples. It's a little bit repetitive, but for a nonfiction, it was very readable, and I had a good time with it. The next book was one that occurred in the reading vlogs that I did. This was the Buzzwordathon July reading vlog, and it is another graphic novel. It is Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy. Obviously, it is based on Little Women from Louisa May Alcott. I would say this is Little Women with a feminist twist, and I enjoyed it. So it's very much worth reading. I'm not going to go too into it. It's fairly short, but let's just say that I think Alcott would be proud, because my understanding is some of the things that she had to do in her book were things that she would not have ideally wanted to do, but it was expected in the time based on women roles. And these characters, while they follow many of the same plot moments as the characters in Alcott's book, they get very different endings, and I appreciated that very much. It doesn't follow them into full adulthood. They are still kind of like late stage teenagers by the end of this book. So I did appreciate that, you know, we don't know long term what happens with these characters, but it was pretty lovely. I had a good time with this. And I do love the movies of Little Women. I have not yet finished reading the Little Women book. I started it. It wasn't quite for me. I may have to go back to it at some point, maybe as an audio. I tried reading it and it's very vignette-y, and vignette-y books are just not my thing. All right. The next book I read was a mystery thriller called What the Wife Knew. There is a guy, and he is a terrible person, and he's newly married to this woman, and he is killed, and everybody assumes that she did it for reasons, and she was going to kill him, but she didn't do it. And so she's trying to figure out who beat her to it. This book was kind of weird. I thought in the beginning I was going to absolutely hate these characters, because with thrillers, sometimes you do. The guy is absolutely horrible. The wife I thought was horrible in the beginning, but she kind of grew on me. I didn't necessarily think the ending worked very well for me, but I was engaged and I had a good time, and I would say it was worth reading. So if you like mystery thrillers, especially one where the main character is not the most horrible, terrible, awful person in the whole wide world, you know, it's worth reading. Just give it a little bit of time, because in the beginning she seems like a terrible person, and I almost DNF'd the book because I'm like, I don't really want to read these two people being horrible to each other. But then we understand why, and I was like, okay, I can cut this girl some slack. But yeah, the twists and stuff, a little bit too much for me, but again, might work really well for you. The next one we had is We Could Be Magic. This was a graphic novel about basically a girl who wants to work at a theme park that is very Disney coded, okay? And she really wants to be one of the princesses for the theme park, but she is plus size, and so that's not happening, but that is her long-term goal. It's cute. There's plus size representation. It's pretty adorable. I had a good time with it. The next book was a 4-star that I read for my July Buzzwordathon, and it's If I Never Met You. This is it looks like a romance, but I would say it was more like women's fiction. The girl has just broken up with, or been broken up with, her long-term boyfriend that she has been living with for the past, I think it's 15 years. They're not married. They kind of didn't want to get married, but now she's thinking, oh, he didn't want to get married because he didn't want to be with me, not because, you know, we're too cool and edgy for marriage. She meets a new guy at work, and they kind of initially do a fake dating thing. She is trying to make her ex jealous, and he needs to look like a stable non-player so that he can get promoted at work. There are moments that this is so fun, so sweet, so adorable, and then there were moments when I wanted to throw it. So I had kind of a mixed journey. I did initially DNF this book because it was very British and hard to read, so I ended up reading it on audio. So I started reading it, reading it, and I was struggling a lot because of some of the British language in it, and also just like the way people were speaking, the jargon. It was a lot. So I ended up consuming most of this on audiobook, and that ended up working a lot better for me. Just know that going in, for me, especially if you don't read a lot of English books, like European English books, it might be a little bit of a challenge for you in understanding. It certainly was for me, but once we got into it, I was very interested. The next book I read for a vlog, but that vlog is not out yet. But it's a blog I'm very excited about, so if you want my full thoughts, watch for the future. But that is Annie Bot. Annie Bot is about a robot that has been purchased by a guy, and she is given basically, she's made didactic, which I didn't actually know what that word meant. Apparently, it's like a learning capability. She is able to learn. And as she learns, she kind of gets sentience. And as she gets sentience, she realizes that the dude who was her owner is kind of not exactly what she was hoping for in a human. And she starts having some big thoughts and feelings. This book was hard to read. There is a lot of like abuse and trauma in this book. I think there was a lot of commentary on sentience. There was a lot of really good thought-provoking things in this book, along with a crap ton of trauma. And I don't know that the end worked for me. But I didn't think it was a bad book. I was very engaged in it. And at the end of the day, I did give it 4 stars. I do have a lot more thoughts on my reading vlog, though. All right, my last 4-star we have is Murder on Pleasant Avenue. This is one of the Gaslight mystery series. It is somewhere in the 20s. I don't know exactly which book. I have read all but one of the books in the series, I think. So I thought I'd read all the books in the series. And then I was going over my Goodreads and realized that there were 2 that I hadn't rated. And I'm still not 100% sure if I read them or didn't, including this one. So I went back and read it, and man, there were some familiar elements, and I was like, I don't remember this specific thing, but I remember things kind of similar to this. So did I read it or did I not? I will tell you, based on some stuff that happened at the end, I don't think I read it before, because if I had, I feel like they were stuff I would have remembered. But also, it was 2020 and my brain wasn't working as well in 2020, if you know what I mean. I'm sure everybody's brains were not working as well. So no idea if I read this or not the first time, but I did in fact read it this time and had a good time. One thing I will say is I'd forgotten how lovely and funny these books are. I think by the end of the series, I wasn't necessarily feeling those character elements, and I was kind of like over the series. So the end of the series was kind of a little bit lackluster for me, but this was still when the books were good. And maybe, again, if I reread some of the later books, I would feel differently, because reading and how you read them and when you read them matters so much. But at the time and place that I was reading this, it was funny and I had a great time. And I was so glad to be back in the world of Frank and Sarah to enjoy this book. I should probably tell you what it's about. So there is a mafia guy he's the leader of the Black Hand, which is like an Italian mafia. It's not really the mafia, but it's mafia-esque. And he has been kidnapping and holding people for ransom, and he ends up dead. And the question is, who done it? Was it a family member of one of the hostages? Was it one of his own people trying to usurp him? Who done it? And of course, Gino, he is like a junior detective. So our main characters in this series are Frank and Sarah, but especially as the story progresses, Maeve and Gino kind of come up in importance. And they do play a role in this book, but not overtaking Sarah and Frank, which is a frustration I had in later books, because I don't like Maeve and Gino nearly as much as Frank and Sarah. However, there was just the right amount of Gino and Maeve in this book. And so Gino was sent to talk to this guy and is found with a dead body. And of course, the police in this time and place are absolutely incompetent and assume Gino must have done it, even though he had basically no motive. So yeah, Frank and Sarah must prove that Gino did not, in fact, do it. It was lovely. I had a great time with it. All right, and so now we are on to our 5-star read. And I gotta tell you guys, this is definitely a book that is a 5-star because of time and place. I don't know if I would have necessarily considered it a 5-star outside of this time and place. Also, it is very left-leaning, so if you are not of that political affiliation, this book will make you mad. Don't read it. But this book is called On Tyranny, and it is basically 20 things that people have done in history to stand up to tyrants and regimes. And, you know, I know there's a lot of complications with how accurate is the media. And I want to just say that, I am well aware that the kind of media we view feeds into the media that we see. And so my worldview is going to be very different than somebody who is getting their media from the other side of things. That being said, there's a lot of things happening in the world that I am seeing in the media that I consume that is making me feel like this is a very timely and important book. And I definitely took a lot of it to heart and plan to take measures to, fight in my own way using some of the elements of this book. There is also a graphic novel version that I plan to read next month. And I want to see how that hits. But it felt timely, it felt good, and it was a 5-star because I needed it right now. I don't know if I would have read it 5 years ago, if I would have felt as intensely, but I needed it now. So yes, on Tyranny. It's short, it's sweet, and it feels very relevant, especially, if you are a person who has a uterus, and if you are a person who considers themselves LGBTQIA, and if you are, anybody who is not a straight cis white man. All right, that's the end of the political rant, I promise. So those were the 17 books I read in 3 months. I'm hoping the next few reading months are better and that my numbers go way up, because reading 17 books in 3 months is crazy and not my norm. But, and I am behind on my reading goals for Goodreads too. But at least I'm reading books. Please, in the comments, tell me if you read any of these books and what your thoughts were. Also, if you read any great books in June, July, or August, what was your favorite reads? Do you have any books that are similar to ones that I enjoyed that you could recommend? Particularly, I'm always looking for paranormal romance that is more along the lines of like Stay a Spell, Wolf Gone Wild. I'm looking for stuff that's light, that's fun, and doesn't really have alpha holes, which I know Stay a Spell kind of has some alpha holes, but like fun and light for my paranormal romance, and a little less kink than Stay a Spell if you've read the Stay a Spell series. Mysteries, cozy mysteries, especially historical cozy mysteries. I'm always in the market for those. So please, again, book recommendations, leave them in the comments. This has been Jane, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Pictures and patterns put into words that stream across the page.